Greetings and welcome to Odoo 9 Essentials. This is the Enterprise Edition of our Odoo 9 Essentials, and the purpose of this video is to cover the basic and most common applications that you would use in Odoo and give and provide you a solid foundation to build the rest of your Odoo learning and learning about how to implement Odoo into a specific business scenario. So this is designed to cover, major applications like sales management, the CRM, how you would integrate purchasing, some manufacturing, how you would tie in a website, a little bit of how the e-commerce might get pulled in. So we're going to cover a lot of territory in this video. It's going to really expose you to Odoo. So let's go ahead and get started. I did want to go here right to the database manager so we can get started from the beginning. If you have the Enterprise Edition installed and you're able to create your own new database, and this would be anybody who's an enterprise client that is using the source code for their own installations, or if perhaps they're going through Odoo, reseller that would have a way for them to create databases. But regardless, we're going to start at the beginning so you can see how you can, if you happen to have the source code, create a database. So we click Create Database here, and let's go ahead and just call this Boat Dealership. So this is where we're giving an example. We're naming the boat. We'll call it actually Class Marines. For Odoo Class Marines, this is Class Marines is the names we're naming our database for our business so that we can easily recognize it. I'm also going to put a V9 ENT just as an example of a naming convention you might use so that you know that your database, when you see it in a list with different versions of maybe different versions of 9, community versus enterprise, or version 8 or other versions. So just a naming convention example. And then you want to give a password here, and we're just going to pick our own password here. And you'll notice that we do have a language that gets set here. You can pick the language that you would obviously be most comfortable having your interface in Odoo in. So this installation is going to go pretty quick. I'll talk through it because what's happening right now is the server is setting up a new database inside of Postgres. And that's the database that Odoo stores everything in. And with that, it's creating a foundation of just the very basic framework. So it didn't take long, and you can see here that in the Enterprise Edition, we have a much different look. If you're new to Odoo Enterprise, you probably haven't seen this maybe before, but this is the way it's going to look for you now if you're in Enterprise Edition. And from here, we can install apps just like we would have in the old Odoo. But you'll notice the menu up here is a little bit different. So now instead of having the menu down the left like in the old Odoo 8, here we have, and even in the Community Edition, by the way, of Odoo 9, the last that I've seen it, still has the menu on the left. But now to get back to your applications you've already installed, you click this button. So this is like your application button. So you click your application button. You can see we've only got settings. So let's click settings here, and we'll see here that there's kind of a dashboard configuration now for settings that gives us a little bit of information about how many active users we have. Let's just directly go to managing our access rights, invite new people through an email once we get it set up. Here we can directly go browse new apps to install. We have access to the App Store here and their theme store. And you'll notice here it says follow these implementation guidelines to get the most out of Odoo. And so what's going to start happening here as we install applications, we're going to get a walkthrough guide that'll explain to us how to install that app. And we're going to take a look at that because it really is a nice feature. And finally, there's some social features over here. So this is just a basic look at the dashboard. So let's go ahead and install one of the apps, because what we're going to do is look at a case study just like we've done in Odoo 8 Essentials. In this Odoo 9 Essentials, what we're going to really look at is what does it take to do a boat manufacturing company eventually. But we're going to start with the dealership side of it. So put yourself in the role of a marine dealer. And this dealership sells boats, motorboats, in a range of sizes, from maybe as small as 12 to 15 feet all the way up to maybe 60 or 80 feet. And so they got a variety of different boats that they wish to sell, which maybe come in different colors and different configurations. Like in a dealership type situation, that you might have different interiors, different dashboards, different engine options, different speakers, and entertainment options. So boats get complicated. Especially the type of high-end watercraft that marine dealers sell today. So we're going to use that as our example, as a marine dealer who's selling boats to their end customers. And to do that, we're going to install our sales management module. So we click sales management, and now in Odoo 9, as opposed to if you're coming from an Odoo 8 environment or OpenERP older versions, in Odoo 9 you do not get prompted for a currency, you do not get prompted for chart of accounts, you don't get asked which company to pick when in fact it really only let you pick from the company that you were installing for anyway. It also doesn't ask you for taxes or any of that other kind of thing. So you'll notice that it just installed it. There is in Odoo 9 no questions that you get asked. It just installs what it believes for an English configuration you would wish to have. So let's see what you get. You notice that it took us to the sales application, and as I had shown you earlier, this is our application button. It takes us back to our applications that are installed. So now you see that we've got a discuss option that we'll look into a little bit later. We got contacts that is really our customers, but it also can be suppliers, it can be users, it can be anybody. So this is just basically people. So they put that into like its own separate menu, so to speak. So these basically are the menus that you can get to. They're icons for them, but you'll notice that there's no menu up here at the top like there is in Odoo 8 or even in the Community Edition of 9 that I've seen. This is only in the Enterprise Edition. So if I click this arrow to go back, you'll see that I'm in the Sales module. And if I want to click here and say go to our Invoicing module or application, now it changes up here to Invoicing, and we have our dashboard, sales, purchase, and configuration. You'll notice here it says this is the accounting dashboard. If you have not yet installed a chart of account, please install one first. So this is really important that in the new version Odoo 9 Enterprise, one of the things that you'll want to do from the very beginning is pick this chart of accounts, because if you don't, there's likelihood you're going to have trouble adding customers because you're not going to have certain account configurations it's expecting. So at least in the enterprise version, from what I've experienced, you really do want to go here to the invoicing tab once you've installed any application that uses invoicing or accounting at all. Go into your sales, or I'm sorry, into your invoicing here, and click on this browse available countries. So they've broken out all the countries' different chart of accounts into their own icon here with the flag, where they describe the country. and any kinds of other, nomenclature that'll help you identify the accounting system you should be using. As this is I'm in the U.S. I'm a U.S. partner for Odoo. I'm going to pick the United States accounting. So we'll see this down here. And just so you can see how this works up, the interface looks different, but you can type it just the same. So if I start typing up here, United States, like this, and hit enter, it'll select that. So you'll notice it wasn't doing any kind of real-time searching. Things are a little more optimized, but we've got here the accounting that we need to install. So I'm going to go ahead and click install. And this is going to give us the core accounting. And again, we haven't been asked a lot of questions, and there's now a lot of configuration that's built inside installing that accounting module. So I'm going to click back here again, and we'll click back on settings. And you'll notice now it says that we have 3 apps installed, and that now under this implementation, rather than it saying we have to install more things, in order to use this, we now have this invoicing application that we have installed, and it shows that we're 5% along in our implementation. So let's click on this and watch what happens. What we get now here in this pop-up window is some very good documentation on how to implement the in this case accounting application in Odoo. And so you'll notice here that it says this guide will help you get started with Odoo accounting. Once you're done, you'll benefit from reduced data entry, clean customer invoices, automated document sending, on-fly payment reconciliation, banking interface. So they're basically giving us a walkthrough checklist that can help in implementing Odoo into your environment. And this is really important. Part of this video is to touch on this at a very high level and walk you through, really the basic operations you need to know and get started. But I highly encourage you to walk back through this and go through this step by step. So for example, if I click on your company here, you'll notice it has the legal name is my company. A place here, the address and the tax ID and the currency. Some of these things, might be just fine. For example, the payment terms and the currency. But, obviously the legal name's going to change. So you'll notice that they got a link right here to change the name of your company. So let's go ahead and change the name of our company. And we had already kind of decided our company name would be Class Marines. But notice another thing that's happened up here, this little pulsating dot. This is showing us like a tip. So whenever you see this, you can click on these to get some tips. So let's go ahead and click it and see what it says. Navigate easily between documents using the navigation path to go back to previous screens. So we'll look at that, and I'll walk you through that. But basically, it's showing you that here's the list of companies. If I click on the company now, you get what is sometimes called breadcrumbs that lets you go back to companies. Now, if I click, if there's anything, I'll have to find maybe something else we can click on. And here, paper format. I click on this. Now, notice how I've nested in, and I'm on the European A4 paper format, but I can get back to my company, and I can also then get back to company. So this is an important interface. This was in 8, but just if you're new to Odoo, this is important. And now we can change the name of our company. So let's hit edit, and let's call this Class Marines, and say, for our tagline, we sell boats to people. Yeah, it's very catchy. And we can then, of course, notice how we have a text placeholder that you just see the outline of it. It's telling you that this needs to be the street address, street 2, city, state, and zip, but you just type over them. So we'll use our name, customer address. And notice how as I type, it starts restricting what we type here in the pop-up. We can add states if we needed to here by on the fly by just saying create. Obviously, we're not going to add a state on the fly, and you might want to lock this out, if you're an administrator, to keep any user from doing that when they're adding companies in. And notice how as soon as I pick the state, it picked the company or the country. And now let's just put in zip code. And we can go down here and put in odooclass.com and our phone number, which I can't remember off the top of my head because I never call it, but we'll go ahead instead of phone number and just put in sales@odooclass.com. Okay, so this is basically where you fill out the company information, and I'm just showing you how you do the data entry. The only thing that you really need to notice is that it does let you pick country here. Just to review, just so you know that you can go here and choose search more, and here are a list of the country names, the country codes, and we can narrow it down here. So if we wanted to find Germany, for example, we can say search and it'll restrict the name, and we can click it, and now it fills in that country. But it'll also fill it in here. The search more just gives you additional options for maybe if you wanted to search on other fields and so forth. So now this is all we're going to really look at this point before we go ahead and do a really basic workflow. And what I like to do is let's get a customer in. We're going to create a sale and sell a product, create an invoice for that, and we're going to do that pretty quick so you can see that this doesn't have to be long and drawn out. It can actually go pretty quick. So we're going to go to sales, and under sales we have a customers link. So let's go ahead and add a customer. Now I'm just going to do it this way, but then I'm going to show you in the next step how to add a customer on the fly. This time we're going to actually create a customer and say we've had someone come in, they're interested, they're an individual, they want to buy this boat from us, and their name happens to be Bob Sacramento. And they're not from a company because they're purchasing these boats as an end recreational enthusiast. And so oops, and I didn't mean to do that. I accidentally clicked, so let's see how we can clear this out by just blanking it out like that and leaving it. So, and making sure that this is checked individual. Okay, so now let's just make up an address. And this time we'll put that in Illinois and give a zip code. And they're not going to have a website. This is just someone that's purchasing a boat. Now, one of the things that we're gonna talk about is that there's these internal notes that are going to allow you to keep extra information. This is important in pretty much any accounting system. Odoo 9's no exception. So anything that is for the customer, you would want to come maybe down here, and you might want to collect some information that says, even if you're not using this for CRM, maybe that you're just starting getting using this to collect customer information. You can use this as like a lightweight CRM by saying Bob is interested in boats that are bow riders and at least 25 feet. Budget, and then say approximately 150. So this is one way you can store a note with the customer, so that we're saying basically, here's someone interested in a boat that we think they're going to buy. We can save, and now we're on this customer record. We've got basic information. Now, one of the things that is a little bit new in 9, if you're coming from 8, is there is no tree view here. You would just go back here and click customers to see them in the what they would call the Kanban view. Now you can click to see the tree view. But once you go to the form, you kind of lose that little icon, uh, you know, collection up here until you go back here to customers. So then we can look at them in a Kanban view and click on them. So we got a customer now in Odoo. Let's now add a product that we would maybe sell here to Bob. So under sales, you'll notice that the fourth thing down here on the list is products. So let's add our product. And they give us a little bit of help here in deciding if we wanted to find a product for everything we sell, a physical product or services, basically anything that we would sell. It doesn't matter what business you're in, you will put it in as a product. So in this case, our product is going to be make it a 26-foot bow rider. And so this is just a boat. If I can go here to Google real quick and say 26-foot bow rider, just see what one might look like. So there's an 18-foot bow rider. There's a 22-foot bow rider. So just to give you an idea what kind of boats we're looking at. There's a 23-footer right there. So they make them up, all different sizes. And I just happen to pick Stingray site there, but there, a lot of different types of boats that we can buy. So we could say this is a Stingray bow rider. I'm sure they don't mind me at least saying something good about their company, or there's a lot of great boat manufacturers. But we put in our sale price here, 26.8. That's too cheap. I think instead it'd be more like, maybe 175,000. We'll say. I don't know. Let's take the Stingray off too. We don't want to endorse anyone specifically, and because we don't know what their sales prices would be for boats, we don't want to mislead anyone. So now notice that this product type right here. If you mouse over some of these items, they'll give you help. So this help is telling us that a consumable is a product for which you don't manage product stock. It's non-material. It means it'll just keep getting used and used and used and used, like you have an unlimited amount. Another one that we have available is service. So consumable and service are the only two we have available, partly because we haven't installed warehouse management. So we have no way to really stock a product. So either we sell it as a service, or we just assume we have it available all the time. We don't have any other way. But so we're just going to, for now, say that it's a consumable. We're just going to sell it, and so we can do our sales order, get our invoice out, and get our money, and we'll worry about setting up our, product flow later. So let's go ahead and hit save. And that's all we have to do. It's kind of a simple setup. There's a lot more that can go into it, but I'm going to first walk you through a very simple configuration. So we have a product here, and I can click products to see here in the Kanban view our product, or I can click over here and see what is the tree view, and we can see that right here it's showing cost. We haven't defined a cost, and so let's go ahead and do that. I clicked on the record, and I'm going to click edit. And so let's, under our sales price, let's go ahead and say we'll assign a cost of 94,000. So, assuming we get a pretty good markup. It's probably a pretty high markup. But we'll say that's why we're in business, right? We want a good markup. Oops, I clicked on the wrong thing. So I'm going to click sales to get back there again. And we're going to click on our product. Now at least we can see in the list here, when we look in our tree view, it'll have our cost listed, right? Okay, so let's go ahead now and create a quote for Bob for this bow rider. So we go to sales, we go to quotations, and we can click create. And under customer, we can click, and you'll notice as soon as I click, it's going to pop up our list. So since he's our first person, we can just click and select them like that. Now, notice that this is underlined dark. That's how you know in Odoo 9 that it's a required field. So that means we don't have to put in any kind of expiration date for our quote, meaning that at some point the quote would no longer be valid. We don't have to put in payment terms, and we don't have to put in an analytic account. So we'll worry about those later. Let's go ahead and jump down to our order lines and add item, and notice that in this case it didn't give us a list, but if we click here, it's going to show us the list. Another thing is, as soon as we would type a number, that falls in line, it's going to pop it in the list. So I can select our 25-foot bow rider. Notice how it fills in our quantity and our unit price, and assumes a tax of 15%. So that just is something that Odoo configured. We didn't decide on that tax. That's just something it configured. I'm going to show you how to change that as part of this essentials video, but just so you're aware that that's something that came with our chart of accounts. Okay, so now we have a subtotal here, but notice our total is showing 0 still, and there's a link here that can click update. So this still does not update in real time in sales orders, but if you click update, it'll do it here for you. So how did we get to this 201,000? Well, it's 175,000 for the boat, 26,000 for tax because of our 15% tax, and we'll leave that in there. Notice that we also have a little note that we could put in here, and it says here, set up default terms and conditions in your company's settings. So this is kind of giving you a little bit of information. If you want this to be filled in automatically, you can do that in your company settings. So we'll say once delivery before spring. So this is a basic sales order. You'll notice it gave it an SO, the document an SO in front. So that's going to be a convention you'll see in Odoo, is that every document's going to have some kind of prefix or a way to distinguish it from other documents. You can change this. We'll show you how. And also, there's a numerical sequence, and you can see that this started at S001. If you've been observant, you'll also see that we have over here another help tip over here. Let's go ahead and click on it. And it shows here that this is the progress of the stages that the quotation goes through. So notice how it goes from quotation to quotation sent to becoming a sales order to finally being done. So these buttons are, will move the sales order to different stages. And you'll notice that we have now a save. We can hit save, and we have our customer address listed out here. We see our order line and the total. If I click quotations, we'll see our quotation listed. So now that we have our quotation, let's go ahead and see how we can take that right to an invoice. We click sales order. Before we can actually do this, that you have to remember, this is in a quote standpoint. It's not actually a sales order yet. It's in a draft state. So we at some point will confirm the sale. And so let's say that, for example, we talked to Bob. He really couldn't pay 175. He's negotiated for something. We've decided to knock 6,000 off so we can drop it to 169,000 and hit save. That's perfectly acceptable. It recalculates our tax and total for that new unit price that we've just given Bob. Now we'll confirm the sale, and you'll notice that our document now over here is marked as a sales order. It's moved from quotation to sales order, and that we've got a create invoice button. So now we've basically said we've created the sales order. We're waiting on the boat. The manufacturer sends it. It arrives at the lot, and we're ready to hand the boat off. We can now hit create invoice, and we get a what do you want to invoice. We have invoiceable lines, and by default you'll notice it says deduct any kind of down payments. So if they've already given money, if you had payments already against the account, it's going to take that out first. And that you can also, while we're doing this invoice, actually put a down payment amount, apply an income account, taxes, and so forth. But we're going to keep it simple for now and just say invoiceable lines deduct down payments. We don't have any. So when I hit create the invoices here, it creates us an invoice and says basically this customer now owes us $194,350 for delivery of this 26-foot bow rider. Now, this is also editable. So, for example, maybe there was an add-on that they wanted you to add an extra stereo to the boat, an extra speaker system. So you could come down here and in the unit price, change this to say 175 and hit save, and it'll change this right on the invoice because this was in a draft state. Now, from a business standpoint, it'd be very smart to want it'd be smart to take and document this. So you might want to come down here and say um, added, and then the money, and you know how much that was. You know, $6,000 was it for the? It's an expensive speaker system, but the idea being is that you can, and what I'm trying to stress here is you can change this on the invoice as long as it's in draft state. So we have a sales order that has this unit price, but we went on the invoice and up, changed it here because it was still in draft mode. So, and that's common in every system. That's one of the reasons the invoices are really the transactions. Think of invoices as that is what really happened. Sales orders are proposals for what could happen. Even we have in Odoo a designation between quotation and a sales order. When it comes to accounting purposes, invoices are what you've charged for the service or for the product. So this is the transaction. This is what is going to get posted in the accounting system. Sales orders don't really create journal entries or create transactions in the accounting system. So now that we have this invoice, we're going to hit validate, and we now have Bob Sacramento owing us 175,000. And if we click on their account here, Bob Sacramento, it takes us to their record, and we can see here the invoiced amount and that they've had one sale. And notice the breadcrumbs now here have kind of gotten a little bit longer. So we have, here's the customer, here's the invoice that got made from this sales order. So it's real easy now to jump back and say, okay, here's the sales order. This is the sales order for the boat. If you need to see the customer, you can click here to see the customer. You can go to sales and click customers to see the customers. If you need to see the quotations or sales orders, you can click here to see sales orders. And you'll notice if we go to quotations, we don't see anything. So that's going to let me show you one thing that can kind of be a little confusing. If I hit create, and let's say we got Bob liked his first boat so much, he decided he wants another one just like it. So we're going to go down here quickly and get him a boat. And we hit save. He's all excited about his boat. So we hit save here on sales order. And you'll know we see sales orders here. SO002. But when I click sales orders, watch what happens. SO002 just disappears, or like vanishes into thin air. And this is just something that Odoo's had even in Odoo 8, in that it really didn't lose the sales order, it's just a quotation. So if I click sales and I go here to quotations, now I see the SO002 for that second quotation that we just made. If I click back on sales orders, we'll see the sales orders for the first one that now under the invoice status shows fully invoiced because we've invoiced this boat. This other one is here just under quotations. Now as soon as I click confirm sale, if I click quotations, then it looks like it disappeared from there, which, well, it did disappear from there. It's just stuck now down inside of sales orders as ready to be invoiced. And notice how, because we didn't modify the unit price, it really didn't save our change on the line item here. When we duplicated it, it took our ordered quantity, multiplied it by what the product was, and that became the unit price. So that's a distinction to recognize. When we duplicated the sales order, it didn't exactly duplicate it down to the unit price that was changed. It re-pulled the unit price from the product. So just something to keep in mind is to understanding how Odoo is handling things when you duplicate a sales order. All right, so hopefully that was pretty straightforward, how we create the invoice and how we can duplicate a sales order, create another invoice here if we wanted. Let's see now a little bit how we could add a customer on the fly. So let's say we got another customer, and so I'm going to come up here to create a sales order, and it'll say new here. Now we don't have this customer yet, and so we'll put in, for example, I'll use my name this time, Greg, and I can now hit create right here. And if I click create, it'll add the customer with just the name. It won't even ask for any other information. Alternatively, I could do create and edit, and it will actually bring up the customer record to edit it right then. We'll just do this one for now the shortcut way. So notice how I'm ready to go on, and when this happens, this little icon appears that now I can use this to bring up the customer record. So I can click this, and now here's the customer record, and I can actually go in here because I'm editing the sales order record, and I could put my email address in here, for example, and save it. So this is a way you can get to the customer, and you can actually enter a customer on the fly this way. And we can likewise do the same thing with a product. So let's say that this is a this is a deck boat, say a 25-foot deck boat. So I could say 25 foot, and notice how the create is here the same way, and I can say deck boat. And now when I click this, it actually creates that product right there. And once again, we get the icon here that lets us know that we can go and bring this record up. Now notice it gives us a default unit price of $1, so we could go in here and change this. So let's change this to maybe 210,000. Expensive boat. Now if we wanted to, we could pull the taxes off here by clicking this X, and we lose the taxes here. So say if this was for resell, and so there would be no sales tax, we can remove taxes here, and likewise we can click and add the tax back in the same way. So at this point we got a new sales order, and everything from here is pretty much what we saw in the other. We can hit save, and what I want to show you is, notice how I changed this on the sales order. If I hit edit and go back and click on our deck boat here and pop it up, you'll notice how it left it at $1. We only changed it on the sales order. So this is where you're going to want to change the sales price, and then of course we have a place for the cost as well. But it'll, if you add by default and use, you don't come in and edit the record, it's going to leave that unit sales price at $1. And we'll hit save like that. So now we have a different boat, the same process essentially. Now I will show you that if we add also on this 26-foot boat, one of the things you can do, and you'll see it pulled that price, is you can reorder your line item. So I can pick this up and move it down, pick this up and move it up. So you can order your line items to create a sales order in the order that you want to see them in. Okay, so I can hit save here, and you'll notice here there's a print button, so we're going to go ahead and click that, and you'll see what'll happen is it's actually now taking and writing this sales order out to a PDF file. And so we see it downloaded here. I can click on it, and this is our generic sales order before there's been any customization. So you can see it's pulling pretty much the same information that we have on our other screen, but this is something that you could attach to an email. Obviously, if you've set up Odoo, an email server inside of Odoo, that's part of like an administration thing. It probably won't get covered in Odoo Essentials, but will be part of a follow-up video. But then you would be able to send this quote or the sales order as by email using this button. So now naturally we can cancel this as well. So just so you can see, I can come in here and click cancel, and it cancels this order. Even after it's canceled, there's a set to quotation button that I can click. It brings it kind of back from being canceled and puts it back into a quotation state. Now once I confirm the sale, I can also do a set to done, and this is a little different than in Odoo 8. In Odoo 8, you only had one state that you'd have, that it's either a quotation, it's been sent, it's in sales order, or it's done. Well, set to done now is a way to tell Odoo in the sales management module that you're done working with that sales order, because one of the great new features that we're now going to cover is that we can actually edit a sales order once it's been confirmed and change the order quantities. And you'll see what I mean by that. So even though this sales order has been confirmed and we have our order quantities already set in previous versions of Odoo, like Odoo 8, that was it. You couldn't change that sales order, without having to, cancel it, duplicate it, the canceled order, and then, make your changes. Now everything is managed on the line item, so I can click Edit here and go in and say, okay, maybe we want, 2 of these and 3 of these. They've decided they're going to start really reselling. So maybe I'll take the taxes off there too to represent that. And then I'll hit save. And you'll notice that it let me save these new order quantities just like that. And so since we don't have like warehousing installed or anything else, we can also use this same thing to say what we've delivered. So we can say, hey, we've delivered 4 of these and we've delivered 1 of these, for example, and hit save. And it's keeping now track of what we've delivered with each line item. Now we're going to get to the invoice part, and to keep it simple the first time, we always want to start with the simple example. We're going to say that we've ordered this many, we've delivered this many, now we want to invoice them. So we click create invoice, and it'll, like before, say invoiceable lines, deducted down payments, and we'll create and view those invoices. And so this is the draft invoice that gets created, and we're going to go ahead and validate this invoice. So now we've created another invoice for our business, and let's see what happens now when I click edit and go in and say, wait a second, they've decided they want to order 5 instead of 2, and we went ahead, say, and delivered those 5. Hit save, and now you'll notice that we've invoiced all of these, but we haven't invoiced all of these, right? We can go to our invoice, and we'll see that we've only invoiced 2 here. If we go back to here, we can see we've only invoiced 2, but we've ordered 5. So you can see that our sales order total is 1.75 million, but if we go to our invoice, we've only invoiced 1.1 million. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we hit create invoice, and we'll say invoice lines, deduct down payment, hit create and view invoices. And you'll see what happened here is it created another invoice here for the difference, a draft. And it brought them all up so we can see what's going on. So I can click this now, and notice that here's the invoice for the difference. And this is now a separate invoice. So we were able to do something here in Odoo 9 you just simply couldn't do in Odoo 8, and that's modify a sales order, change the quantity of the line items. You can actually add new line items same way, and it will then not only just allow you to do that with the sales order, it'll also let you generate an invoice with the difference. So we can validate this invoice, and now we have, if we go back to the customer invoices here, we can see each of them on this same source document, but we have the trail here of each of the separate line items as they got invoiced. So much more powerful. Should work similarly in Community Edition, but certainly a welcomed upgrade. Now you'll notice up in the right corner here we have our two invoices, and we have, obviously the summary of our sales order here. And at this point, for example, we could set this to done, and what that means is, we're done working with this order. We're not going to, now at this point you can't change it. So if I hit edit now, the quantity orders are locked down. So you can click on it and bring up the details, but these are no longer changeable once you've set this condition to done. So now I'll save that back again. And just so that we're complete at going through the very basics here, you'll look under actions and we can delete this. So I'm going to show you what happens when we try. Delete, okay, it says you can only delete draft quotations. So this is just something to keep in mind. This has already been processed, it's been through, it's been sent to done. It would be inappropriate to actually just delete and get rid of it. So just like it showed you there, you can only delete things that are in draft. Now the other thing, if I say invoice order, let's see what happens. It's still going to come up and say invoiceable lines, even though we've already invoiced everything. So it's not really, that might be an upgrade that could be put in to have it check and just warn you and say you can't. But let's see what happens when we say create and view invoices. Notice how it didn't create a new invoice. So it's not going to create an extra one when there's nothing there, but it doesn't really warn you until you go through the steps. Just something to keep in mind. So now that we've created some invoices, let's take a little bit of a look at the accounting side and see what it's going to look like in the other applications. So there is a lot more to the sales order application, but we got a lot of applications to cover, and we'll touch on the parts that we really need to. We'll be coming back to sales management certainly, but let's go ahead now and look at, if I click this, the invoicing aspect. So we haven't installed accounting and finance. So let's, just so you can see what I mean by that, if I click here and I click apps, something to keep in mind is by default accounting and finance is still not installed. So notice how this is still saying install, and this now says invoicing. So we haven't installed accounting and finance yet. They give us kind of a lightweight accounting that comes in, and so you'll notice that we haven't done anything with the bank yet. We haven't done any cash transactions, any vendor. We haven't paid for anything. But you'll notice that here under customer invoices we have our invoices. If I mouse over it, it sees the amount. So this is what we're seeing, and it shows here we're waiting 3 payments for our 3 invoices, almost $2 million worth, right? Now, this new interface gives you what I would suggest is a nice dashboard for doing things that you would do frequently in the job of an accounting manager, someone or accounting clerk, that creating new bills, creating new customer invoices, new cash transactions, and so forth. So this is great, and for a small little company, maybe a couple of people, it'd be fine to maybe have all these together. But to be honest, most of the time you might not want the same people that can create sales invoices to customers or can pay invoice bills and create these things to also be able to say create purchase orders. So there's what I would say, always give consideration to accounting controls. And once you get a company with 25, 50, or 100 people, you want to have a line of control where one person might create the purchase orders, and then you have a whole separate person in accounts payable that actually pays those purchase orders. Otherwise, it makes it real easy for someone to create a purchase order for a fake company and then write a vendor check out to pay for that purchase order. So again, I'm not going to get too far off on standard practices, but just something to keep in mind. But let's real quick see here what we can do to pay for the boats we've purchased. So if I click new bill, let's say we got an invoice that comes from our supplier, because we didn't get these boats for free. So we're going to hit new bill, and you can see that it prompts us for a vendor. So we're going to go ahead and create, say, Global Marine Manufacturers. So I don't know if that's a real company or not, but I'm just going to create them as saying these are this is the company that has supplied us the boats. And we can go over here and have a date that it was due. We have a standard date selector here that should be self-explanatory, but we'll say it's due on the 22nd, for example. The bill date, I mean, this would be the date we received it. So we say we received the invoice on this day, and then we have to pay it, say, by the 30th. And that would be something that would be on the invoice that you receive as doing your accounts payable is what this would also be called, is doing an accounts payable process here where you're actually paying vendor bills. And now here we can add the product. So we can say, okay, we have so many deck boats, and we've purchased 10 of them. So even though we may be, or we can even say more than that, but whatever we want to say, there's not we haven't directly connected this with our sales order. We created a sales order, an invoice that said, here's how many boats we've sold. And now we're creating a bill that says, here's how many boats we've bought. But there's no, with this installation, since we've just installed sales management, there's no direct connection. We're just specifying information. So we could put any number in here we want. So let's say we bought 8 of those, and then we bought, how about 5 of these? And if we're buying them for resale, we might not be paying taxes on this. And so this is our total that we are paying to Global Marine Manufacturers, and we can validate this now. And this actually now has made this an accounts payable item. We owe this money. If we go back to our accounting dashboard, we'll see this now as money we owe on invoices, and this is money we expect to receive on invoices. Make sense, right? Okay, so let's do a new cash transaction and see how we can accept money. And notice how it's saying right here, this is just a cash journal, and it's gonna create a reference automatically for us to create this entry. This auto up here tells us that. Defaults to today's date, and we can have a starting and ending balance. So this would be like a way for you to, if as you're getting in cash, because that's what the idea of this cash journal is, you're getting money in, you might already have a drawer, already have cash there that you need to account for, that is going to be part of a deposit. So that's why this is here. But we'll just say we're starting with nothing. We'll add an item in here, and we can put a reference in here. So we could actually, if we wanted to, reference a sales order, for example. And we could then pick one of our partners, like Bob Sacamano, that this actually is an account that we have money on, and we could put in a cash payment. But let's just for now make somebody new. We'll say Kelly, and the amount's going to be, say, $500. They just came in and say this is like in-store. How about we'll say that it was for a boat cleaning. Boat. How about winterizing? That's a better thing. Winterizing. So you winterize these boats. They sit for the winter, and so somebody brings their boat in. They already purchased it, but that's part of class Marines is we winterize boats. So we have a $500 cash transaction that came in. We hit save, and it says this line items. Oops. So I'm going to cancel that because I have to have a memo in here. We say for boat winterizing. Save. So we can take a cash balance just like that. And then the reconciliation part, when we reconcile this, is that we're going to have a list of all these receipts, all these, throughout the day, different checks and cash and different things that have come in. Those will all get added up. You look at your opening balance and compare it to your ending balance, and then you say what account you want this to go to for your bank reconciliation. So say bank, like that. And if we wanted to have tax on it, we could, but we're not. And so for our label, we can say daily cash receipts. So this is how all that's come in. Boom, 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 boom. As we add them in, we just added one for now. And then this is saying if we at the end say we've only got $350, then that means that we must have had an opening balance of 150 or minus 150 in order to come up with that amount. Whereas if we were over, so now it's saying that we'd have to choose a write-off to get, we're not in balance. So this has to balance. It'll tell you, and then you can reconcile, and it says you're done. So we can go to our bank statements now and create a bank statement that then would let us compare that to our journal. So we hit create, and once again we've got, just like the cash reference, we do it exactly the same way. We add an item, we say what the item is and the amount, we go down and reconcile, make sure that everything balanced out. So this is basically the new interface for invoice reconciliation. There's going to be a lot more to this that we'll do in individual videos. It'll target accounting and finance. Individual videos are going to target probably specifically bank reconciliation, but this is just to give you an idea how that works. So I'm going to click again and get back again to invoicing just to look at a couple more things here. But you'll notice here our cash now is going up, that we've received that cash, right? Now let's go ahead and see how we would pay these invoices. So here we've created an invoice that we need to pay. Here we're waiting for customers to pay invoices. So let's pay our invoice. We click on one payment waiting, and we can see it's the vendor, and we can open it up here now. And notice how right here at the very top, just like you would expect, is our register payment button. So let's click that. And we can pick our payment method, whether we're going to do bank or cash. We'll do bank. And notice how it's the full amount. It's already set in there. So if we didn't pay in full, say we only pay the first 750,000, so we can make a payment, validate it, and we can decide here. It actually looks like it went right through it, but it kept it open, I'm sure. And then now you'll notice here that it's shown on this same bill, this invoice, it shows the paid amount here and then the amount due. So we could register another payment, and it's going to default to the full amount. We can do it from the bank. Let's say we do another payment of 200,000, validate it, and it automatically now has both of these payments, and we can see our amount due. There's a little I there. You click that, it gives you details of the payment information, a little summary. That's kind of nice. I can click on this one and see that summary, and then I could, open a payment or actually unreconcile it and pull it back out. But as you can see now, you see a lot of detail. Here's our invoice. You can see the payments getting taken off all in one place. And so we could finally then say, okay, this is the last payment, hit validate, and at this point, you'll see the payment button go away because we paid it off in full, and that our amount due is 0. So this now is in a paid state. It automatically goes kind of to what you might call a done position. And you can see there's some extra help there for some of the other statuses. Now, let's say that we do need to ask for a refund. We are just going to cover that. It's fairly straightforward, but let's take a look at that. Let's say that we get one of these and it's just not what it was supposed to be, and they've decided, or we couldn't sell it, we need to send it back. So we're going to take a credit for that. We're going to ask for refunds. So I say ask for refund, and you'll notice here that we can create a draft, we can cancel, create the refund, and reconcile, meaning that in this case we're going to make it like it never happened. So it says, use this option if you want to cancel an invoice you should not have issued. The credit note will be created, validated, and reconciled with the invoice. You will not be able to modify the credit note. So this just makes it like it never happened. This says you'll be able to modify, edit, validate the credit note directly, or keep it in draft waiting for the document to be issued by your supplier, customer. This modify, create, refund, reconcile, and create a new draft invoice. This will cancel the invoice and create a new one from it, and then which we can modify and change everything. So we can decide how to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to do the first method because it's probably the most common one, and basically we can issue ourselves a full, ask for a full refund, get the full amount back. But it also lets us edit it, and it keeps the other invoice not as, in this case, a canceled version. It's or creating a refund. This actually is canceling the invoice like it never happened. We want to say, yeah, it happened, but we say return of 26-foot bow rider, for example. So we create a refund, and it's going to bring us one up in a draft state. So here it is in a draft state. Now, by default, it's trying to send back the whole thing. See, we don't want that. We only need to have the refund on one of these. So, hope I didn't get 2 clicks in there. All right. And so we just want to send one of these back. So as soon as I change this to a 1 and hit save, you'll notice that our actual refund amount now is for the one boat. And that we could here, for example, log an internal note that says for return of 26-foot bow rider. And there's a send button, but we did an internal note, so it doesn't really send anything. It just logs a note right here, just like some of the other notes that keep track of everything that's happened. So this little part at the bottom, we haven't really talked about it yet, but now's a good time to look at it a little more in detail. This is what has been called open chatter. It looks like here they're calling it messages and communication history.